Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen wa salatu wa salamu ala ashrafil anbiya wal mursaleen nabiyyina Muhammadi wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Amma ba'du, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome to our daily fiqh hour. Apologies for the absence yesterday. As I have said that, we're now in tricky times in the sense of trying to squeeze the fiqh hour in between iftar time and obviously Taraweeh time. Just to make an announcement, from tomorrow, inshallah, it will be at 7:45. So from tomorrow, it will be 7:45 for the remainder of this Ashara until we get to the last 10 days. And then obviously I will give another announcement when we get into the last 10 days. So today's topic, today's theme is about the big question: is Islam anti-technology? Is it a Luddite? Luddite meaning, is it against technology? Is it against advancement? First, let me give a background to why that is even a question. Some people perceive that Islam does not want to move with modern times, that it wants to retain a connection with the old days, as it's referred to as the Dark Ages, going back nearly 14 centuries. And what it wants, the people perceive, is that Islam wants to have the world return back to a very basic sort of civilization, living in mud huts, living in small enclaves, in small village communities. And even though the world is now a completely different place, they want to kind of return to that utopic kind of world, which in a way sort of is no longer in existence, apart from in certain parts of Asia, in certain parts of Africa, and in certain parts of the Middle East, and I guess by extension, certain parts of South America as well. And then this accusation continues and says that this is because Islam does not embrace advancements. It does not embrace advancements in technology. It does not embrace advancements in medical science. For example, the use of mobile phones, laptops, anything of that nature, computers. Now, obviously, with AI around the corner, all of these things are considered and construed as being anti-Islamic. And therefore, and it's only because the so-called mullahs, they don't understand these technological advancements. They cannot understand this, the way we as a world are moving forward. And therefore, what they don't understand frightens them. So instead of engaging, what they do is they just want to ban everything. And this is how everything is clumped together. And that's why they say religion has no place or no part to play now in the 21st century, because it is holding us back. It is stopping us from moving forward. It's not allowing us to fully engage with the advances we can make. We can make such advances that we can land people on the moon. We can send messages in an instant to the other side of the earth. We can transfer money at the click of a finger or the click of a button. We could do so many marvelous things. Okay, so many marvelous things, but Islam as a religion does not engage with that, does not like that, and it's always holding us back, trying us not. And if we did allow Islam to be, Islam to be, in charge of the world as a world view, then we would be back in the Dark Ages. We'd be back living in mud huts. We'll be back using sticks, blackboards, and chalk, and and stopping smart boards, and not using smart boards and things like that. And you might be quite surprised at this, but this is even a concept which is held amongst some Ofsted inspectors when they go around inspecting Islamic schools. They feel that it's that they're having the use of these things is considered as anti-Islamic. So that's the theory. Is that the case? Okay, is Islam against this type of development? Well, I guess you already know the answer to that. So the short answer to that is no, it's not. That's the short answer. The longer answer is that what is being misunderstood is that all forms of moving into the future is considered as advancement. So, for instance, I was reading something in the a news. Used to say back in the day, I was reading something in a newspaper, but obviously nowadays we don't have newspapers. Well, we do have newspapers, but hardly anybody reads them. So I was reading something on a news outlet on a website, and it's saying that New York is going to remove the law which makes adultery illegal. So there is a law, I think it goes back to 1907 or something like that, or 19 something or other. That was the last time it was enacted. But there is a law in New York which says adultery is illegal. So if a person was caught being adulterous, then it was actually a crime that they'd committed. So the New York powers that be are now debating this and saying, well, actually, we've advanced as a community. We've advanced as a society. And therefore, we don't need these kind of archaic laws to determine our practices. We now know that consent is such a thing that we can have more relaxed relationships, whether with the opposite gender, whether with the same gender, whatever. This is we've advanced. This is the issue that Islam has a problem with, because morality does not advance as we move, because you cannot measure. In order to measure advancement, you have to have a blueprint. You have to have something that you're comparing it to. So, for example, let's just say now, I'm speaking to you live here from Bradford, and you're hearing me wherever you are, in the UK, abroad, anywhere on the planet, you can hear me. So this is a technological advancement. Could I do that, say, 30 years ago? Probably no. Could I do that 50 years ago? Most definitely no. So therefore, we have a benchmark. We can say 30 years ago, I could not do this. Now I can do this. So this shows, obviously, without any doubt, that there is a clear development. This is a clear advancement. Okay, clear advancement. But I got, probably got a bit of a flaky internet because I'm running 4 devices: Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, and TikTok. It's a bit flaky. So sometimes the Facebook will drop, sometimes the Instagram drops, sometimes there's a bit of lag with the YouTube. So let's just say 10 years from now, we have it's 5G at the moment. We have, 10G or something. And there's no lag. I could have 100 devices and there's no lag at all. So that's going to be an advancement. So we can compare now to 10 years later to 10 years ago and say that this is an advancement and this is a positive advancement. Okay. But when we talk about morality, which we did talk about in detail last session, I think that was on a Thursday. And let's just say now, this New York particularly, let's just use that case, this New York case, where they're now thinking that adultery laws are out of date, and we have advanced as a society. We have moved forward as a society, suggesting that this is an improvement. Okay, that this is an improvement, because everything that moves forward is an improvement, isn't it? For example, when we move technologically forward, that's an improvement. When we move forward in the medical world, that's an improvement. If you look at sports, I guess that's an improvement. If you look at the football players nowadays compared to the football players 30 years ago, compared to the football players 100 years ago, one could argue that they are more elite now, sports people, compared to what they were before. So because we're looking at everything as an advancement, we somehow assume then that morality is also advancing. Okay, that morality is also advancing. When in reality, what are we using as a benchmark to assess our morality? Now, if we don't have anything that we're using as a benchmark, and all we're saying is the more liberal we become, the more moral we are, well, that's a flawed understanding. How can the more liberal we become be more moral? If we're going to take the argument that the more liberal we become, the more moral we are, then having intimacy between siblings is more liberal than not having intimacy between siblings. Having intimacy between parents and their children is more liberal than not having that. Having intimacy with children is going to be more liberal. So are we really saying that eventually that we will advance and we will develop and we will improve in our morality? And if we break those boundaries and those taboos as well, that will actually mean that we are now a more moral society? Nobody will make that case now, because it's flawed, and they'll never go future, but they'll always go backwards, comparing it to how they were, saying that we put these unnecessary restrictions. So for a moral code, we must go by somebody, okay? We must go by somebody or some being that is beyond us. That cannot be us. That is somebody who's beyond us that makes our moral code for us. And based on that moral code, okay, that's how we determine whether we are morally improving or morally degrading. Okay, whether we're morally improving or morally degrading, that's how we're going to do that. So therefore, just to go back to the actual theme for today, which is, are Muslims or is Islam anti-technology, then we need to not conflate morals and morality with technological, and not to just put every advancement or every development into the same bag. So therefore, there is no issues with technology. Now, some people might say, yeah, but there was a period, particularly in Afghanistan, where there was an issue between items of, whether it was TVs or laptops, and there was this issue there. The rationale for that wasn't the actual technological advancement. The unfortunate thing is that when there is mass transmissions, and there is a possibility now of spreading material which is completely inappropriate, and it can be easily mass consumed. So for example, without, say, the internet, okay, without the TV, to spread immorality would have been very difficult for a person to go and engage in impermissible transactions, impermissible engagements was pretty difficult. Okay, but now with the so-called technological advancements, now anybody with an internet connection and any type of device can observe and watch all sorts of material. Now there's the so-called dark web, so you can even observe immaterial on that as well. So therefore, you will see sometimes that in order to stop one problem, you may have to try to block other things as well to stop the harm. So this has been conflated as this management of technology as a hatred of technology. So cutting a long story short, I gave you the answer at the outset. From a technological perspective, Islam has no issues whatsoever with how technology can be used and how it can be utilized. In fact, it promotes and looks at technology as a tool for doing the work of deen. So whether that's, for example, as we're sat here now, sharing ilm with one another, making dawah, things of that nature, which would have proved impossible, for you to access somebody at 8 o'clock at night on, here in UK, roughly anyway, at 8 o'clock at night on a day of Ramadan might have proved very, very difficult. Whereas now you can put questions and you can get questions answered. You can have a little bit of dars on a particular theme. Now, for you to be able to get that access at your locality might not have been possible. So we can see that we can harness technology in order to further advance the work of deen. Okay, so that's the theme. Let's just pick up some of the questions which have come onto the YouTube before we pick up any questions which have come on elsewhere. We're being told by liberalism and feminism that marrying to satisfy your sexual desire is somewhat backwards and wrong. Can you please clarify? Yeah, absolutely. Good point, Suhaib. I'm glad you picked up that point and kept it within the framework of today's theme. I thought marrying to settle your sexual desire can also be legitimate. The argument that's being made, Suhaib, is that, liberate, true liberalism, is where society does not restrict your engagement in order to meet your desires, as long as, and this is the key point that they say, as long as consent is there. So that takes rape out of the question. That also takes pedophilia out of the question, because they say, well, there's no consent there because that's a child. It takes rape out of the question because the woman has not consented. So as long as consent is there and the two people are in legal position to consent, meaning they're adults, and they've not, and then there's always this argument about grooming, that obviously if somebody has been under the authority, if a child has been under the authority of an adult, and that adult has played a very key role in that child's development, whilst that child was a child, and now the child ceases to be a child, even that can be frowned upon, because this is what under this broad umbrella of grooming, where an adult, a senior adult, a professional, a person of authority, is usually in charge of an impressionable adolescent, and uses his or her influence over this impressionable adolescent to eventually engage in sexual activity, even if the child is now an adult. So that's the key point here, is consenting adults. And if there are consenting adults, then why should society restrict you and stop you from doing as you please? That's the argument. And therefore, they don't necessarily look at marriage as a backward thing. They just say that that is not, you are not fully engaging with the philosophy of liberty, because you are restricting yourself to engaging with one particular partner. And that other partner is restricting themselves to engage with you. And the society, unfortunately, is such that that is not going to work, because people are not going to restrict themselves to one woman. They're not going to restrict themselves to one man now, because obviously the society is going in a certain direction. Therefore, why should we pretend, and why shouldn't people, as long as they're consenting, be able to engage with whoever they engage with? So that's the argument that's being made. Hope that makes sense to him. Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, Anas. A brother works for a charity. Let's say, for example, it's £33 for a food package. The food packages are distributed in different cities. It is permissible for him and the charity to charge. Are you asking? It says it is permissible. Are you saying, is it permissible? Let me read it as a question. Is it permissible for him and the charity to charge £35 instead, so they can cover transport costs to the different cities? Or is it a must to inform the donors that they would be charging extra? The charity will basically be charging a little extra for the food package to help cover the transport to various cities. Yes, there's nothing wrong in that. Okay. I think we're getting a little bit pedantic nowadays with how we price things up. Now, 100% there should be transparency. Okay. We shouldn't be fooling or tricking people. But when we put a price, say, of £35, then that should be all inclusive, because that £35, like you said, in many of these cases, when we're delivering food to refugees, or when we're delivering food to people in a war-torn city or war-torn country where there's an ongoing war, then you find that you cannot buy anything. So if the charity turns up and says, here's £33, go buy some food, that person is going to say, what am I supposed to buy with this £33? Have you noticed there's no shops here? Everything's been bombed. Okay. There's no bread. There's no oil. There's no food. There's no tinned food. What are we supposed to do with this £33? Here, take it. Unless we're going to use it to make firewood out of it. So obviously the people have to buy the food stocks in Turkey or in Jordan or in Lebanon or in Egypt or whatever else for that matter, and now deliver it to those particular hotspots. So obviously they're going to have to get a truck. And when they get a truck, they're going to have to hire a driver. And when they hire a driver, they're going to have to put the petrol in the actual truck. Now, and this is the argument that I make. Those people who support the infrastructure of a charity, this is a greater reward for you than those who actually buy a food pack. Reason being is, when you buy that food pack, okay, then that £25-30, whatever it is, feeds a family of 5 for a month or a week, is gone. But if you pay towards that truck, either towards the fuel or towards hiring of the truck or towards hiring of a driver, and he delivers, now imagine how many deliveries he's going to make, or how many deliveries are in that truck. You get a reward for every single piece. So we're making, you see, what we're doing is, unfortunately, is we're making charity slightly transactionable now. Oh, I'm buying a food pack. Here's my 20 quid. Get me my food pack. Oh, you never told me that I was going to pay for delivery. So are you going to add the delivery on top? Do I have to give you that separately? You are doing work of khair. And this is, I blame the charities for this, because the charities some charities, let's not blame all charities, some charities have done this, where they've made it like a little transactional. right? They should put an inclusive price to say sadaqah food, boom, £30, £35, £40. Sadaqah water, boom, £60, £70, £80, whatever it is. And that's an inclusive price, which would mean that that person receives at the point of receipt, this is how much it's going to cost the charity. I've heard some women say they ask for high mahar as a backup retirement plan in case something happens to them, such as divorce or their husband dies. Is this correct? Is this incorrect? And it's not incorrect. Are you asking, is it incorrect to do that? Or are you asking, is it incorrect of what you're saying? It's not wrong for a woman, in order for her to be absolutely sure that I want to have something as a backup. There's nothing wrong. So yeah, a woman can ask that. There's no issue with that whatsoever. But obviously, it has to be balanced. Yeah, it has to be balanced because, if she sets a very, very high mahar, where she's talking about, I don't know, 20,000 pounds, 30,000 pounds, 40,000 pounds, then how is anybody going to give that mahar? So it has to be balanced. But yeah, there's nothing wrong in her doing that in order to protect herself moving forward. Should we be encouraged to ask scholars like yourself questions when we're unsure, or is there anything off limits? I don't know. What do you mean when we're unsure? Unsure on the question? Do we ask scholars because we know the scholars have ilm? So we should ask questions that we want to do amal on. Sometimes you find people just ask questions for the sake of asking questions. They've got nothing better to do, so they're just asking questions. One is asking questions in order to put that into practice. That's got to be the key. Because if you're learning ilm with no amal intended, then what's the point in learning that ilm? The only benefit is that you're in the company of ulama. That's the benefit, alhamdulillah, that you could be, watching something or listening to music or whatever. But instead, you're sat in a majlis of ulama. So you're listening to their discussions. You're listening to a little bit of Q&A or whatever. So there's khair in that. So no, there's nothing really which is off limits. I don't think anyone should think that a question is off limits. But I guess I can tell you when you ask a question and I say, "Ooh, that's off limits." So you get an idea, inshallah. Barakallah fiqh, Anas. Assalamu alaikum wa alaikum salam. Following up on a question I asked earlier this week. I'm not going to remember that, sister. As you can imagine, many questions get asked on this format and also throughout my day. Anyway, let's see if I remember. Following up on the question I asked earlier this week about the impermissibility of women reciting Quran when they're unable to pray. I do remember, alhamdulillah. I'm just going to press a few buttons because the emoji covers the question. So this will push it up. Right. Does this also apply to verses such as Ayatul Kursi being recited when leaving the home or the four colors before sleeping? No. Okay. Those matters, sister, those which are referred to as dua, ad'iyah, those, for example, they do not come under the hukum of qira if you do not make the niyyah of qira. Yani, I'm not reading this because this is part of the Quran. I'm reading this because this is a dua. Okay, then it's fine. But if you recite it or you pray it with the niyyah of qira, that yani this is a part of the juz of the Quran, and because this is part of the Quran, I'm reciting it. Okay, and then it's a problem. But if one says this is a dua, which is found in the Quran, absolutely, but I'm reciting it, I'm praying it as a dua, like you said, for protection, then one can, absolutely so, yes. Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Alhamdulillah, all is good, mashallah, barakallah fiqh. No problem at all. I'm glad that I make sense, sister. Alhamdulillah. Are women allowed to lead other women in salah when there is no present, or is it completely forbidden? SubhanAllah, so this is the second time I was asked this question today. Would you believe? A friend of mine from a long time ago, I hope he's not on this live, because he's an old man, and he was a classmate of mine as well, alhamdulillah. We studied together. A question that in his part of Pakistan, the moment with his mother, and the village that he is in, he says there's per rawaj. There's a new rasam, there's a new thing going around, new fad, as they refer to it, in which the female hafiza, well, you would have to be female if you're going to be called a hafiza, in which the hafiza lead women in tarawih. So he asked me, he says, Muftab, is this permissible? So the answer to that I gave him, and the answer I will give you, is obviously that this is considered, even if it's a jama of women only, it is makruh at-tahrima. Yani al-makruh at-tahrima. It is disliked close to hurma. Disliked close to hurma, close to impermissibility. However, the salah will be valid if women were to perform that prayer. So the salah will be valid. However, the ruling of the salah itself is al-makruh at-tahrima. Honestly, some of my questions may seem out of the ordinary. Is this the same Suhaib that's in Pakistan that comes on my Facebook or comes on the Facebook, or is this another Suhaib? Honestly, some of my questions may seem out of the ordinary, but the issue is there is so much misinformation in our age, and this misinformation gets intertwined into our deen. And I ask just one to have a clear answer. There you go, no problem, inshallah. That's what we're here for. Okay, so keep please asking away. Whilst you're asking away, I'm just going to jump onto the okay, you're another Suhaib. I know there's more than one Suhaib on the world. Alhamdulillah, may Allah increase the Suhaibanun, Suhaibun, whatever the plural is. Let me just see if there's any questions which have come on the Telegram. But keep please asking away here. Assalamu alaikum. What advice would you give to a person who is fasting and her sugar level keeps dropping? It's getting difficult to fast. Can I feed a fasting person instead for 30 days if it's permissible? What niyyah must be made? There's no doubt, sister, that when a person fasts, that their blood sugar will drop. That's absolutely, logical. You're not taking in any form of nourishment. You're not taking any form of food. And therefore, as the day goes on and your body is now rummaging around, trying to find some energy to keep you going, then it will get challenging. So expect it to be difficult. I consider myself to be a reasonably fit man. And obviously, as the day winds on, I feel the effect of the fast. But it's also somewhat mental as well. I know when I was slightly unfit, that as the fast bore on, then it became more challenging for me because I didn't look after myself. So it's very important. The Prophet ﷺ warned us about our stomachs. He said it's one of the worst vessels to fill. Okay, one of the worst vessels to fill. So, but we fill it beyond its means. Even when we make iftar, we just keep eating. Remember, it takes some time for your stomach, even when it's full, for the signals to reach your brain to make you stop feeling hungry. So don't eat too fast. Best thing to do is eat something. As much as you want to eat everything, eat something, some fruit, little bit of food, and then go pray your salah. When you come back, that food has managed to make its way to your stomach, and slowly you'll realize you're not that hungry anymore. But if you just sit and eat, trust me, you can eat so much before your stomach is literally exploding and you realize, oh, I've eaten too much. Okay. And this is the problem that we have. So one has to just be careful. Of course, you're going to struggle, but inshallah, keep the himmah and keep going. Assalamu alaikum. If there is a Quran musaf on top of the wardrobe, which is behind one when praying salah, would that be sinful or disliked? No, it is not directly behind you, so there is no issue or concern. I didn't get a proper understanding of your answer. So to clarify, the satisfaction of sexual desire can be a legitimate reason for marriage. Absolutely. It is one of the main reasons for marriage. Okay, it's one of the key reasons. There's only 2 or 3 reasons for marriage. One is to further have more children and have more Muslims. And the second one is to reach sexual satisfaction. That's what it's there for. So one shouldn't shy away from it. That is a reason why it's been made. That's the only way that we are permitted to be satisfied in that department. Let me just see if there's anything that's come on the chaps. Assalamu alaikum. If we receive news of the sighting of the moon in Morocco, is it still sunnah for us to look for it in the UK? Wa alaikum salam. Absolutely. We go by UK sighting first, Farouk Bhai. Okay, so the first thing is UK sighting. Remember, we will be in Ramadan up until Maghrib. We will not come out of Ramadan before Maghrib. So inshallah, we're still in Ramadan now, but fast forward to the 29th, for example, fast. Okay, so we're doing the 29th fast. And there will be no way that you will get news from Morocco before that. Okay, because they're roughly on the same kind of time zone-ish when it comes to that declaration. So what you will have is that as a Muslim living in the UK, we will wait until the sun sets. Now the sun has set. Now is where the gray area comes. Has Ramadan ended? This is the 29th day, which is finished. So now we don't know. Remember, the night comes before day. So we get the 28th fast. Then we get the 29th night. Then the next day, we get the 29th fast. When we reach Maghrib time, now we are trying to determine that this night, which we are now experiencing, is this the 1st of Shawwal? Or is this the 30th of Ramadan? That's where the mubham, yani that's where it's not clear. So we will wait and we will go out to see if we can see the hilal. If we see the hilal, alhamdulillah, no problem. Barakallah fiqh, may Allah bless you. Wonderful Ramadan. Taqabbalallahu minna wa minkum. Enjoy your Eid. If, for example, we get no positivity at all from the UK, then we say, okay, this lack of sighting in the UK, is this because there was a true lack of sighting it? Or is it because we had excessive cloud cover? Because that is the usual excuse which is given for not sighting on this island. The fact we're an island surrounded by water, we tend to have more cloud than most people. We tend not to have clear skies. And also due to our latitude, of course. So therefore, our next point is that let's go to the nearest Muslim country to see if, did we miss the moon because of excessive cloud cover? Or was it fair that we did not sight the moon? The nearest Muslim country is Morocco. So it's not as though, as a representative of Wifaq al-Ulama, we go by Morocco. No. As a representative of Wifaq al-Ulama, we go by UK. It's solely in the absence of UK, we need to know now why we did not see it. Was it due to cloud cover, or was it due to the fact that it was not possible to see? The only way we're going to ascertain that is we use another nearest Muslim country to see whether they saw it. If they did not see it, then we'll say, fine. The reason why we didn't see it is not because of cloud cover, is because the hilal was not possible to see. Alhamdulillah, let's now carry on with the 30th. We know that we're going to be traveling to fasting another day. If on the other hand, we do sight it in the UK, then Morocco doesn't really matter. The nearest Muslim, let's just use the word nearest Muslim country rather than the word Morocco, because what I see is then this division being made that, some people follow Saudi, some people from Morocco. No, I think I want to do away with this word Morocco. Instead, I want to say nearest Muslim country, which happens to be Morocco. It could be any country, it doesn't matter. It could be Timbuktu. Okay. But for now, we're just going to call it nearest Muslim country. So we go and sight in the nearest Muslim country. If the nearest Muslim country also see it, don't see it, no problem. But if, say, we try to sight it and we don't sight it, but the nearest Muslim country sights it, then we will say, due to cloud cover, we did not see it. Therefore, because it was visible in another country nearest to us, so we're now going to announce. Okay? Hope that makes sense. What about for a second or third wife? Or to satisfy one's sexual desire? As in, if one wife is not satisfying one's sexual desire? Well, you need to first explore that with the first wife, that you cannot meet my appetite. That would be a conversation that you would have there. Then obviously it's about the hukuk of the second wife, because you have to provide fully for the second wife. Like you have a house for your first wife, and you have to provide food for her, and clothing for her, and moral support, and social support, and everything else. Then if you have a second wife, you have to do all that for her as well. Now, if you're financially capable of doing that, then absolutely there's no problem. There's absolutely no problem. But many people are looking at it from the physical perspective, but they don't meet any of the other responsibilities. This is not just about fulfilling one's physical needs without meeting the responsibilities that come with it. But if a man can meet those responsibilities, then there's absolutely no reason why not to. But also do bear in mind that the first wife in particular is not going to be too happy about it. It's just normal, it's natural, and therefore he has to accept that scenario as well. Usually the advice you can give to a brother who is going to marry a second or a third time is that he does that right at the beginning. If he does that right at the beginning, okay, then there's no problem if he does that right at the beginning, because the first wife won't think she's the first wife, because the first wife she will think she's the second wife, and the second wife will think she's the first wife. So because you're marrying them literally within days of each other. But if you marry, this is the problem that brothers do, you see, is they marry one wife, stay with her for several years, and then they decide to marry another one. And that's going to be a problem, because that first wife has got so used to this, having this husband all to herself. And then suddenly this new thing comes in, and that's where the issues arise. What do you think about the red-heifer situation in Philistine, if you've heard? Jazakallah for the answers. Yeah, yes, I have heard. Supposedly the place of slaughter has been built. And also it is looking that the sacrifice, or the burning, as I read, will take place in March and April. Well, I guess let's see. We don't have to wait long for that, will we? Because there's only 7 more days left of March, and Ramadan will be finished in mid-April. So I guess let's wait and see what happens. Many people are saying, or should we be prepared? Are the end of days coming? Well, question comes, my brothers and my sisters. Surely we should have been prepared a lot earlier than that, because the ulama have been reminding us about the end of days for as long as I was a kid. The lectures I've sat in. And secondly, never mind the actual capital end of days, but our own end of days is when we fall in our own grave. We've been reminded about that time and time again. So nobody should be in any way surprised that it's happening. It just seems to be, that particular point, doesn't it? Where, what's going on with Russia and NATO, with what's going on in Gaza, with Philistine, with what's going on in different parts of the world. It seems to be, leading to something. Allahu A'lam. I'll give another 30 seconds, inshallah. Whilst I give that 30 seconds, allow me to introduce the theme for the next session, which inshallah, all being well, will be Sunday, i.e. tomorrow. But having said that, tomorrow I am at Masjid al-Hidayah in BD 13. So I have my last dars there, because I only have dars there on a Sunday. And next Sunday, inshallah, I will be traveling. So I may get back late and all the rest of it. So inshallah, the plan is there to be there. But khuda na khasta, it doesn't happen, then it will be the day after. But my talk is going to be pretty much around interfaith activism or interfaith activities. Is there any khair in interfaith activities? What should be our goal and motivations for engaging in interfaith situations? What can we do? What can we do within interfaith situations? Where are red lines in interfaith work? Is anything go? Is everything good to go because the niyyah is there? Or are there restrictions which stop Muslims doing certain things? And is there any good at all in interfaith, or is it really just a waste of time? So that will be, inshallah, the theme for most likely tomorrow. But if not, then the day after, because like I said, tomorrow I do have my dars at Masjid al-Hidayah after Asr. And remember, the new time from tomorrow, inshallah, is going to be 7:45. So slightly later than normal. I've struggled actually last few days anyway, so I've probably been starting around 7:45 anyway, even though it's not announced. But that will be the time, inshallah, and that 7:45 time, that will be the time for the remainder of what month are we on? March, apart from the 31st, because 31st the hours change, everything changes. And like I said, then I will be traveling to London, inshallah, for my i'tikaf. And then we're going to try to get another time in there, but it's going to get quite challenging because I do get very busy when I go down there, as I'm sure you can imagine. Many people, actually, I haven't been for a couple of years, so it'll be good to catch up with some folk there. So let me allow you to give you 30 seconds in case you've got some other questions, inshallah. Walaikum salam wa rahmatullah. I think that seems everything has been done. If that is the case, then I can bid you well. If not, please feel free to put a question. It's not a problem. We're still okay with time. I don't know if the Facebook has gone live, but it looks pretty quiet. Sometimes this happens. Okay, I think we can bring the shutters down for today. So inshallah, all being well, tomorrow, 7:45, if not Monday. Wa akhiru da'wana and alhamdulillah rabbil alameen. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Theme: the history and construction of the Kaaba. Interesting. We do have quite a few themes now. I will add it to my list. History and construction of Kaaba. Yeah, because we've still got the interfaith one, then leadership lessons from Islam, healthy living in body, mind, and spirit, how to make dawah, marriage, free speech, history, and construction of the Kaaba. So I will try to get all them squeezed in before I head down. So at least that's all been done, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.